Okay, do we want to give another few minutes, or how do you want to handle this, Sean?
I think we can start. So yeah, basically, do you want me to take the lead? Do you want to take the lead? How do you want to do this?
I feel like we can just do a good discussion about this and just introduce people to the concept and um, yeah, just kind of get started here. Do you want to
Cool.
just introduce
So
yourself first?
yeah, I was gonna say I can do that. I can be very, humble about it, hopefully. Hi, folks. My name is Sean O'Brien. I have been working in privacy and cybersecurity now for quite a long while. I have been paying very close attention to the work that the folks at Cake Wallet have been doing. And have known Henry for a while, known Seth for a while, some other folks associated with the project. I founded something at Yale Law School called Yale Privacy Lab. We do digital self-defense workshops. We basically try to make folks a little more private, hopefully more secure, and potentially anonymous. Although that last one, I'm sure a lot of you folks know is very difficult. Um, and I've been working on this project called Ivy Cyber. That's sort of the umbrella company. And we are shipping under the PrivacySafe brand a series of apps, all 100% open source, as well as now some hardware. And that hardware is going to have basically a custom remix of a Linux operating system and run Cake Wallet on it. So I thought this would be a great opportunity for us to sort of let the Cake Wallet community know about it, ask us any questions, and I am joined here by Sheree. Sheree, do you want to maybe introduce yourself?
Hi Sean, how's it going, guys? My
Hey,
name's
Sheree.
Sheree. I'm from Australia at 2 a.m. at the moment. I decided to jump on last minute because I was still up. Yeah, so I work with Sean at Ivy Cyber. We do some really, really cool stuff. The projects I work on are a little bit different as well. So CertMag is one, a blockchain one, and also some really cool stuff with AI, LLMs in the legal sector. So yeah, we do a lot of cool stuff, and yeah, I'm really excited for what's coming ahead because I think privacy, especially with a lot of institutions, are quite underrated, and that we're starting to see the effects now, especially in Australia. With all the cybersecurity incidents that we're having with some really, really big companies, governments, and I think it's starting to come to the forefront. So, being here today and with everything and privacy and being at the forefront, trying to, get it across in physical devices is, yeah, something really exciting for me.
Yeah, do you mind speaking for a second on what's, some of the recent stuff that's been happening in Australia the last few years, for those who aren't aware?
Oh, yeah, it's been absolutely crazy. So I think cybersecurity industry, it's kind of really, how do I say it? It's been around, but there hasn't been a ton of people paying attention to it, and it's been kind of like one of the afterthoughts, I guess, for the big corporates. Like they're not training staff. There's no awareness at the board level. Like some of the stuff I've seen is just um, kind of unbelievable. It's just they don't take it seriously. They don't spend money, and it's kind of where it's at. So working in this type of industry, we're always trying to go up against the curve, and the amount of leaked data out there. I'm someone who's very, very conscious of my data, what I give out to general public, and yet I can still find myself on, have I been pwned? And it's always with the one email that, guess what? It's been the one email I have to use for all my things in life, well, not just one couple. That only goes to like government databases, for example. So we've had quite a few. Like, I think basically all of the government departments have been hit quite hard, and not just once, multiple times. Um, we've got our big telecoms here, huge, huge cybersecurity incidents, and I think it's starting to get the point. It's bad when the mums and dads of the world are going, wait. oh, how does this happen to a company like Telstra, which is one of our biggest telecom networks in Australia? And that's when they start to realize that how does this stuff happen? And I keep telling them that, you've got to take care of your privacy online. And now we're at the point that we've got ads running on TV to like, don't use your password again, because we're at the very start of that type of education just happening now. But I think that's a good thing, because that means there's a lot more space for everyone to take it seriously. And they're starting to hire people in the cybersecurity industries for the institutions that I think this sector is going to grow very fast in the next couple of years.
Yeah, no, thanks for all that context. And so, how is this device that you guys have created, trying to address some of these concerns? And what operating system is it going to be running? Because I know you said it's modified, but I'm sure more of the technical people would like to know.
Sure. So first, to get into a few things about Australia specifically, which sort of hinge more on privacy and the regulatory sort of legislative police situation there. Um, in 2018, Australia was one of the first governments to pass a very strong anti-encryption bill. Now, that was sort of whittled away by reality, where companies weren't able to really do business if they were going to follow the letter of the law. But there's been a recent push, and I think it was even the last day or so, where it seems that the government is going to try again. And certainly it's not the only government on the planet. We've seen this in potentially Switzerland. We've seen it potentially in the UK, sort of mandating backdoors in encryption protocols, and so on. So first, just to start with the apps and the software we've been working on. This project is something I think Henry, we've been working on and off for, close to 6 years now, but really ramping up in the last 6 to 8 months. I've really been concentrating on it. It's all self-funded right now, so we don't have any VC, any of that stuff from Silicon Valley, no big tech funding or any of that. And it's 100% open source based on a zero-knowledge file system. So at the heart of the applications, which is like a suite of apps, basically, is a file system that we can't read your data even if we wanted to. I'm sure folks here are pretty used to that concept, but of course it can be pretty novel to sort of a mainstream audience. And also is very good about encrypting metadata as well. On top of that file system and the protocols associated with it, we have a contacts app, so a address book essentially, which of course you need if you're going to talk to people. We have a text chat and video chat app. This is something which folks who use WhatsApp or Signal will be quite familiar with, that sort of interface. We have an inbox app. This one is meant to be a replacement, especially in sort of an enterprise organizational setting, for email. A lot of folks don't know that email is still the main attack vector on any organization, any team, really any individual, for cyber attacks in general. And this would make sure that your internal team using these identities are actually using end-to-end encrypted conversations, which, if there's a data breach, those are the conversations you don't want out the most, right? It's bad enough when your customer data gets out, but certainly your internal conversations are a problem from a security standpoint if they get leaked. And last, we have a Dropbox-like storage app, which of course we've got a file system. So being able to share and drag and drop files and that sort of thing is really important. Sheree has been instrumental in helping us sort of work through some cryptographic verification pieces for that. We are potentially, and it's a sort of something we're working on right now, tying those things for organizations to a blockchain record. And that's the product we're calling CertMagic, or certmagi.com. And that's a really exciting sort of blockchain-based piece that we hope to roll out as well. But we're starting with the apps. We're trying to give folks basically a solution to, I guess, what I've been calling the signal gate problem. As you may or may not be aware, the US government, the DoD, the National Director of Intelligence, et cetera, basically we're using Signal in an unauthorized way, and actually it turns out that we're using a fork of Signal that was by an Israeli firm called SGNL. and using it in an organizational setting where basically were no real access controls, no way for that to be cleared, right? What we want to do for organizations, for teams, is instead of just having this sort of random pattern of folks saying, hey, I'm going to use WhatsApp, let's all jump into WhatsApp conversation and group chat, or hey, let's all use Signal, or hey, let's use Signal, Telegram, and WhatsApp, et cetera, et cetera. We're trying to give folks an entire suite of tools that they can tie to their own access controls, their own even just operational security habits, right? And making sure we have strong notification, for example, about people joining group chats, which is a really important piece, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, now to bring that back to politics and the Australia thing, the apps right now are available. You can download them if you'd like off of PrivacySafe.app, PrivacySafe.app. It's open source. You can create a PrivacySafe.me account, which of course is running off of our identity service. But you can also just download the app, set it up on your own domain, set up your own identity service, because the server implementation is also free and open source software. Right, so we're serious about having not just the applications, but also the server implementation, 100% open source. And by the way, if you want us to set it up for you or set it up with your tech folks, you can consult with us basically to do that as well. So we have both the free availability of the apps, which is really important for not only our ethos around open source, but also our security posture, right? We want people be able to examine our code and know that it's free of backdoors, et cetera, and find bugs and report them to us via our bug bounty program, et cetera, et cetera. But we also, obviously, if you want to use our service and trust us to use our service, you can do that. And that's the simplest way to get onboarded now if you want to get onboarded. So you can do that anywhere. We'll see what happens in Australia. Now, bundling that on hardware and shipping it to Australia is something that's a little more complicated. And we've already had some folks from Oz basically reach out to me who want to order the hardware, the tablet, and we may or may not be able to get it there, not just because of potential restrictions around that from an international company, but also the whole tariff situation. So right now on the website, we are restricting the physical devices, the shipping of the physical devices to the United States. We potentially can accommodate through partners around the world if you reach out to us directly, but at least through the shopping cart, we're not able to do that. The hardware device is an OEM device from China, essentially, a manufacturer in Shenzhen, and it's running a version of Debian, basically, that we've remixed and put the apps on by default. We're putting Cake Wallet on there by default. We have our own minimalistic browser. We're calling Refresh View on there. And we also, and that has like very basic ad blocking with MuBlock and Easy List, et cetera. And we're also putting Brave browser on there because we know that our little mini browser may not suffice for sort of the privacy conscious users we have who want to have all kinds of crazy settings, et cetera. So yeah, that's basically it from a software standpoint. If you'd like to ask me about the encryption and those pieces, I can get into that specifically. But what we're trying to do is basically what I'm calling pragmatic privacy, right? I've worked for a number of firms, a number of projects that try to be extremely hardcore about making sure everything from, silicon up is, ultra secure or ultra vetted, et cetera, et cetera. And those cases of extreme targeting, in my opinion, and working with whistleblowers, literally, and working with folks who are targeted, is still extremely rare. And it's not to say that that kind of targeting doesn't matter, but if you err on the side of locking down a device so much that it's pretty much unusable, when you go to ship it to someone who is trying to use it as their daily driver, they're going to just default back to their iPhone, their iPad, their Mac, basically. And in my experience, that's been what's happened the most. So we're trying to make sure this is sort of a sexy, clean, sturdy, something that you would want to put under your arm and carry around campus and go traveling with and not feel like you are, carrying a ThinkPad from, 1998. frankly. And that's what we're trying to do. Now, the devices are going to ship full disk encrypted. We're using Linux's kernel encryption, the Lux encryption. Basically, it'll ship with a default code and then or a default pass, which we'll provide with you in the package or potentially in an encrypted form separately if you ask us to. And you can just change the password on first login. You'll be prompted to do that. So the cool thing about that is, if you're traveling with a device, it's full disk encrypted already for you. And if somebody takes it, the TSA, international customs, when you're going through an airport, you can at least feel comfortable that they can keep the device, and you're not going to have to worry about the data on it. Now we can get into the syncing services we're also providing, et cetera, but I don't want to be too pitchy about it. It's really important to make sure that you folks can ask questions.
Yeah, I guess where and why was cryptocurrency in any way a part of this for you?
Sure. So I really like what you guys are doing at Cake Wallet. I think it actually falls into that ethos I was talking about of sort of being pragmatic and clean and good looking, frankly, in the user interface and so on, with sort of reaching a mainstream audience with strong privacy. And so we want to, cryptocurrency is very near and dear to my heart. It's very near and dear to Sheree's heart and some other folks who work on the project, especially I'd say Monero, and the strong privacy controls and features that Monero obviously has. If you utilize them correctly, if you use the features Cake Wallet has, for example, you can do pretty well with Monero. But cryptocurrency is obviously something that's been sort of captured by Wall Street. So it's hard for me to really talk about it as like the be all and end all of freedom. I just want to make sure that people have the utility to move, digital assets, digital money, and can do it on a device that would be their daily driver that they would, want to use day to day. Cake Wallet specifically is interesting in a number of different ways. First off, it's really nice to have it running natively on a Linux operating system and working well. A lot of the wallets out there are only running on, for example, iOS on an iPhone, et cetera, and you're exposing the user to a wide variety of trackers and other code running in the background on the operating system that can potentially snoop on them. On this device, you're not going to have any snooping, right? You've got a clean Linux OS. You don't have any trackers running in the background. There's no telemetrics. There's no stats collection. There's no that phone homing. And then you can run Cake Wallet and you can generate a wallet offline completely and nobody will know about it. Now, as some of you folks probably know, Cake also now has some interesting features around that sort of offline wallet. They have something called Cupcake, which would allow you to use a secondary device basically in an air-gapped form, scan QR codes, and basically never have to go online with your wallet if you don't want to. And that to me is a very useful sort of use case of this hardware as well. I could see this being used in sort of a kiosk form, a tablet that you would feel comfortable going to, a big Bitcoin conference, right? Carrying around the tablet, doing orders and so on, and maybe even doing all of those orders with the thing never connected to the internet. So that to me is a really cool use case. And crypto is important and near and dear to our hearts. And also, I would say open source in general. I think that to a large extent, the community, which I don't know if we're still calling it Web3, but let's say we are, is the community that has carried the torch, so to speak, for some of the older, gray beards, such as myself. My beard is getting grayer, who have been in open source for, a couple of decades now. And without crypto, I'm not sure we would have anywhere near the momentum we currently have with good, awesome open source code out there.
Great, thanks, Sean. Yeah, those are kind of the core questions I have to at least get things started. I just invited Tux to speak, but I see Sir Jams a lot is in here off of crypto. I can't read the rest of the usernames. Twitter cuts it off. But if any of you guys want to speak and ask Sean or us or Sheree a question, I'd love to open it up. And in the meantime, Sean, if you have anything else that you feel like, or Sheree, that you guys want to touch on, I'd love to also open it up for you guys while I wait for people to go ahead and request.
Sure. So basically, I just want the community to know we're scrappy, we're small, we're just sort of getting our stuff out there. Like you'll see, I just basically literally uploaded a bunch of videos of me running the tablet on my couch. Right. But we will be basically debuting this device sort of in its real like coming out party, so to speak, at Hope Hackers on Planet Earth in New York City in a couple of weeks. That's August 15th through 17th. And that's a really good conference for us to sort of have a trial by fire. We're going to be around a lot of old school hackers, a lot of new school hackers, a lot of people who are very serious about security. And I'm sure we'll learn a lot, as well as sort of see what else is out there and other folks we can collaborate with. The person who's sort of leading that drive for us is John Kiriakou, who is an ex-CIA whistleblower, who's been working with us as the COO of the company and sort of helping us think more about the real serious cases out there as far as operational security is concerned. So where I did sort of say, hey, you know, if you're targeted directly and somebody's after you with an exploit, you know, they're probably going to get you, right? At the same time, we give somebody a device which is going to cut off, you know, 90-ish% of the avenues that people would have to attack your machine. And you can learn good operational security and with the device as well. So that's something John's going to be doing in a series of workshops with us. So
Great, thanks, Sean. And yeah, what final chance, I guess, for people to request to speak and ask Sean questions. Alpha Crypto, I know you requested earlier, and I got a downvote from you when I didn't accept it right away. So this is your chance.
yeah, so I'm sort of interested, Henry. You know, the direction that Cake Wallet is going and the trajectory of it is really wild right now, which is another reason we're psyched to be putting that on this machine. Can you tell us a little more about maybe not things that are upcoming, because I know there's some sort of secret things that have been hinted at recently, but how the native Tor stuff, the silent payments stuff, the cupcake stuff, how has that been received? Have you guys seen some really good use cases for that? Have you been getting good feedback on it?
Yeah, it's been pretty strong. You know, they're very new, novel features. And so universally, I mean, we've been really embraced by the Bitcoin community in these last couple years, which is something we're really proud of because Bitcoiners and Monero community don't get along super well. And we think that Bitcoiners also deserve privacy. And of course, we're always going to say you can always still use Monero and we're going to have Monero in the wallet. But we still want Bitcoiners to have access to better privacy tools on Bitcoin as well if they're not going to be using Monero. And so no other wallet's really pushing for those kind of privacy tools. So it's that has really developed our reputation in the Bitcoin space these last couple of years. Now, I'd say the main kind of issues I've seen is people just saying, yeah, well, some of these tools, they need to be improved upon. It's, I'm having this bug, I'm having this issue. And so we're still kind of figuring out the kinks. We are literally the first people in the world to implement some of these technologies. So it's, we're also kind of at the forefront and figuring out the problems first, which hopefully should make it better for everybody else if they're also going to integrate those features. So yeah, and the Tor library is really cool too. It's our own native Tor library that's open source, and theoretically other people, I suppose, could use it. But it's we're pretty proud of the stuff we're doing. It's really cool tech.
Yeah, that Tor piece is something we've already been sort of looking at. So Mikolai Biraku, our CTO, and the guy basically came up with the bulk of the implementation for the file system and the protocols behind the apps. We've been, obviously everybody wants Tor or some other onion network. We've talked to the guys at I2P as well pretty seriously, and then NIM also. It's easy to set up as sort of a SOX proxy on an operating system if you have control of that part of the stack. So our, sort of gut feeling is, well, we can just get it running easily, and maybe we'll have a nice little button just to kind of turn it on and turn it off. We've got to see if folks are really that interested at this point. Tor has sort of, at least for general browsing and general operating system use, has not been that easy recently. It's not necessarily Tor's fault, but the rest of the web can be kind of hostile to Tor traffic, right? But anyway, the browser piece that we're working on specifically, we want to see if we can build Tor in a more native way than just sort of running a SOCKS 5 proxy on the OS and then hooking into it. So yeah, that's something we'll definitely be looking at.
Is there a
Those pieces,
reason you don't just
yeah.
bake Tor browser out of the box instead? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah,
Like,
so
what's the difference for you?
there's a couple of different ways to do that on Debian. Debian, generally speaking, has been kind of slow in its main repos in providing Tor apps generally and Tor daemon specifically, which is why usually you would use a Tor updater, which would pull directly from the Tor project and then install it. When I recommend people install Tor, I actually recommend first that they set up the apt over Tor functionality, so you can grab Tor via .onion via the Tor project repos, right? And set all that up in the sources.list, right, in Debian, which is kind of complicated. But what that allows you to do is know 110% that the binaries you're grabbing are the ones that you're supposed to be grabbing, right? They have the correct signatures and hashes, etc. And they're going to be the latest, right? So then you can just run apt and you're constantly grabbing from the Tor project. If we do go that route, I want to make sure we have a closer relationship with the Tor project upstream. You know, I don't want to necessarily ship 100 devices or, you know, a couple hundred devices, hopefully, with Tor baked in and not have a relationship with them, because then if something changes or they, you know, we have that in our sources.list and it's a problem to sort of yank that out or change that because they're moving in a different direction, we need to know about it. But maybe we'll do that. I don't know. We haven't had it really requested very much, and I think it's kind of for the reason we stated. And also, I mean, we are shipping Brave, right? So you do have the Tor tabs functionality in Brave anyway. Now that functionality has sometimes worked and it sometimes hasn't. So same kind of problem that I would say the Debian repos can have, where things get a little outdated or there's some kind of mismatch. I was actually one of the researchers who discovered back in, oh God, was it 2022 or 2023? I can't remember what year it was, but that the Brave Tor
DNS issue,
tabs,
right?
yeah, and it would actually went a little beyond DNS. That's a kind way to put it, but yeah, it was like about 5 months. So DNS traffic is the domain name, so literally the websites you visit, and records of that, the DNS traffic going through the pipe was going in the clear. The content wasn't going in the clear, but the DNS traffic was. And initially, it was thought to be contained to just .onion addresses, so you know, so-called Tor hidden services, aka the dark web to most people. And then it turned out it was every single DNS, all DNS traffic that was in a Tor tab. So if you were trying to go to, you know, any website, whether it was .onion address or not, in one of those tabs, it was being doxxed, and for almost half a year. So. It's not to say there's anything wrong with the Brave guys. You know, once they found out, they fixed it pretty quickly. But the reason that bug was introduced was because they actually had beefed up the ad blocker. They made some kind of tweak to the ad blocker and did not take into account that it could potentially screw up the DNS resolution in the Tor tabs specifically. So it's an example of like kind of in isolation fixing one privacy feature or making it stronger and not realizing that it had these sort of downstream effects on another feature. And that kind of stuff can happen when you're not working directly with the upstream project, which is why, like I said, you know, we want to make sure we're pretty serious about being close to the Tor project if we do that. And not that I don't know folks at the Tor project, not that I haven't known them for a long time, but usually, if you're going to sort of throw a few hundred users their way, so to speak, by having them use Tor on the esodaily driver, you kind of want to, you know, have a stronger plan. So we'll see. There'll be plenty of them at Hope, and we'll talk to them, I'm sure. Now, the NIM guys also, I think that's an interesting use case. They're currently sort of focused at using something that's a little more akin to a VPN a little easier to plug in and have faith that it's routing the traffic the way you think it's routing the traffic. And the least known of all these networks, the onion networks, I would say, is I2P. And that one, we're already talking directly to the devs about. They're very interested in working with us. And generally speaking, we're small and scrappy. They're small and scrappy. So we kind of want to work with folks who are going to be very directly involved. So we'll see. If you guys are interested, let us know. I always want to make sure people have the option of anonymity on the internet. I think it's extremely important for speech. I don't think we should be afraid of it. And I think as time goes on and we're forced to sort of be in this panopticon and away from the keyboard, it's going to be more and more crucial that we're actually doing that stuff on our machines. So
Great, thanks, Sean.
Yeah. Speaking
Sheree.
on the note of anonymity, I don't know if you guys are aware in Australia. So we have like new Privacy Act reforms coming in. And basically what this means is anyone under the age of 16, you're kind of banned off social media. I don't know if that's made news over to where you are, Sean. So basically how that's going to work is you need to have some sort of verification tool for each of these big tech giants to kind of like use their platforms and you know, products and services. But a lot of people are talking because the big question is now, and the bad part about this is it's kind of like self-regulated. So let's say you're one of the big techs, you propose how you're going to do this process, and then that goes to the e-safety commissioner, and they say yes or no. So it's kind of like everyone puts forward their best little code of practice, and it actually bypasses the parliament system. So we didn't vote for any of this as, excuse me, Australians. But yeah, so there's a lot of talk that this will actually be a roll-on effect. It won't just be for people under 16, because then what about your search engines? So the next topic now is search engines, because you can't have you know, children going on search engines looking for whatever they want. So people are predicting that this potentially could be kind of like the gateway of how they regulate all the activity, and everyone needs to verify their own identity to even use the internet, is where it might be coming from. So this is why we need, you know, privacy more than ever now, and to really, you know, make a big fuss about it, because otherwise, you know, all our doing anything on the internet is just kind of going to be clamped down by, and it's worse now because it's not just governments, it's the tech guys. The big tech guys are the ones that have the say into how this is going to look like and how they're going to shape the reforms and the policy and the legislation for the future.
Great, thanks, guys. Yeah, those are kind of the end of my questions over here. I'll go ahead and leave it open for another couple minutes. If anyone, this is the last chance. If people want to go ahead and ask these guys any questions, these are some really smart people.
sorry, I couldn't figure out this freaking app. I hate the X app so much, guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I,
this sucks.
I'm so happy that you guys are here, but every time I go to unmute myself, it's like I accidentally. I use a weird phone, of course, which by default doesn't have any googly stuff on it, and then I install trash apps like this to talk to everybody. On this front, sort of the changing of the web, and this sort of identity piece, you know, something that we've been working on at Ivy Cyber in general, and I've been working with some academic folks on as well, working with Sheree on as well, is around artificial intelligence. Everybody's talking about AI, right? And when we're talking about AI, generally speaking, we're talking about this thing called generative AI, right? The chat GPTs of the world, these sort of prompt-based systems that are centralized and sort of taking over things like traditional search or directories or listings of any kind on the internet, really, information sources of any kind. And I think this sort of raises a lot of questions around, you know, censorship, identity, people disappearing off of the internet, so to speak. One of our colleagues at Ivy Cyber, Ted Rawl, if you type his name into ChatGPT, type in TEDRALL, you will find that the chat just breaks because he's been blacklisted completely by ChatGPT. And it will actually even go out to his website, pull his political cartoons from his website, and then not like just break, right? not cite them, not provide any attribution that they're his cartoons, and break. Now he's a syndicated cartoonist in many papers worldwide, gets millions of people looking at the stuff that he makes, and now he's being sort of disappeared from this part of the internet, which is starting to gobble up more and more of the search business, so to speak. For that reason, we've been thinking a lot about local LLMs and running them on your own hardware, your own machines, etc. And actually, that's something Sheree and I have been doing with these tablet devices and sort of positioning them as educational tools. I also was recently appointed to a position as a program director for a cybersecurity program at a small university called Bay Path in Massachusetts, small but mighty. And we are certainly looking very strongly at local LLMs, like downloading your stuff using Olama, and then sort of building your own data lakes, right? Your own repositories of information, and training your LLM to be useful for your own team or potentially self, right? I guess I'm curious if folks are interested in that sort of thing, just generally. We find a lot of organizations will say they're interested, but whether or not they are in the long run, we're going to find out. But are there any individuals out there who are actually using sort of Olama or Hugging Face or one of these to sort of download LLMs and play with them?
Yeah, people can react or request to speak. At least on my end, I can say I've definitely used these a lot. They're actually nice just from a usability perspective sometimes. Like if you're on a plane and you're doing offline work, sometimes it's nice to just have an offline LLM to do basic things. And it just happens to be the most privacy respecting way to do it. So that's just one data point though. So it would be cool to hear from others.
Yeah, we're trying to gauge. So we have some demos already of basically baking that into our chat app. And I think it's almost certain that there's going to be customers who are going to want this sort of thing, users who are going to want this sort of thing. But given the landscape is so vast right now, you know, we're going to have to make some specific choices, and knowing like, you know, what the average user is doing, or what the average, I guess, geek is doing, because it's not going to be the average user, right? The average user is still going to use the chat GPTs of the world. But the use cases you're talking about, Henry, are exactly the kind of thing we'd like to be able to meet. It would be great if we just shipped our own like PrivacySafe AI and had a chatbot, you know, ready to go for people to use. We have to look into the licensing around some of this stuff. I mean, that's the other piece. Even though this stuff is usually released like basically under a public domain attribution, I'm not so certain that it should be. But that's the sort of Yale Law School licensing hat that I wear. Maybe I'm overthinking that piece. I don't know. A lot of people seem to be baking this into products. So.
No, I think you're on point, but I'm pretty much the same as you in that boat. I think the really interesting part is when we're having these conversations is quite a lot of people are aware when it comes to AI, and you know, with people in their company or, for example, education institutions, they've got a really big problem because you've got students that are cheating, and like I'm just looking at the next generation. I'm like, you know, I should feel good about myself. I'm probably one of the last generations that actually went to uni without ChatGPT. And I look at all the next generations, I was like, where's their critical thinking going to be coming from? Because I was like, if you're relying on a bot to tell you things, that's how you learn. And you don't learn things through experience, you know, through context, connection with other people. So it's going to be a very different world. And, you know, I could say some really mean things, but I'm not going to. The younger generation. Hope none of you guys are young. But
We're probably
look,
all young, sure.
damn it. Just shoot myself in the foot. But look, the really interesting part is a lot of people are aware and they're seeing how big this problem is at the moment because they're like, we're just at the touching point. So I've got to give a lot of credit because I think everyone's just embracing it. But the actual decision makers, they know and they are quietly having words and they're really on the fence. So I think we have a really good opportunity now to be able to, tell them, look, this is how it is. You guys have seen it on the news. Like we have like freaking lawyers that are out there representing clients in court, and the whole point you're paid to be a lawyer is you do the research. You tell the client what are their options. Instead, they're doing the research through whatever chat GPT that they're using, um, and that's literally going to court and they get paid a lot of money. So when you see stuff like this, you're realizing, okay, this is not good, that people are actually able to think, okay, what will the future look like? And when we actually tell them, well, there is an option, and that option is you train your own, and you retain your own data, you retain your own IP, because what's going to happen at the end of the day is just going to be another subscription service where, do you really own anything? No, it's housed by a cloud, by another one of those big tech giants that, oh, if you stop using the service, where does all your IP go? It's with them. Where does everyone's IP go now? It's with all the uh one of the what, two, three, many that owns every single enterprise software solution out there, because there's no other choice at the moment. But when you start giving these choices, and what we really need from this community is people to be building these options that you're no longer beholden to, the enterprise suites, not going to mention their names, that every single institution is using. That also they're doing some really, really creepy stuff, like screenshotting every second of our devices while we type stuff in. And think about it, if you're trying to do something that you want to patent, like how can you do that when your computer is taking photos every 7 seconds of what you're doing? And obviously that's going to upload. So we really need to be conscious, I think, in this next wave where there's a time now where people are going to listen and realize with if they don't and options aren't built. And this is why I'm really grateful that I'm working with Sean, because we're one of the few that are starting to make these options apparent. And yes, we're a small scrappy team, but we're trying our hardest in the amount of time we have, because there is opportunity now to be heard, and I think that's apparent. But if not, there's not enough of us out there, and which is why partnering with Cape Wallet is one of the really important things for us. We're just going to be beholden to the big techs of the world, and that's going to be it. Privacy is just going to be a thing of the past that no one even remembers what it is anymore. So that's just a few of my thoughts.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, thanks
so
for opening up.
and that's something Henry's always been great at, especially with the tech lore stuff with the Cakewallet team as well. I guess I'll just put a cap on it here and just say, sort of as a rallying cry around that. Corey Doctorow has been very supportive of us since the beginning of this project, and he always, and especially when we were focusing a lot more on the storage piece, he always said, people can have their own cloud, right? You can have your cake and eat it too. And that's basically what we're trying to do with the PrivacySafe apps and also server implementation. We're not your parents, right? We're not going to tell you what to do with our code. If you want to run the stuff on your own and just run it off your own servers, you can do that. If you want to run it on your organization, then have your sysadmin set it up, or you're capable of doing that, you can do that. If you want to work with us and use our services, we're happy to do that. And if you want us to help you set it up, we're happy to do that. But basically, we want to see people bring back more of their tech in-house. It's sure it carries some responsibility with it, right? But at the same time, we can't just be sort of offloading all of our freedom to these intermediaries that are just controlling so much more of not just the web, but every single interaction that we have. Certainly the LLM piece is going to be a part of that. But we don't require in any of our apps, I just want to clarify, we don't have any AI pieces that require it. We specifically also run a lot of free services already. We launched a bunch of free apps in the last year that do some pretty cool stuff, allow you to share encrypted files that self-destruct after 24 hours, so you can share a link and know that the data you share is not going to persist on the web forever. And by the way, it's also encrypted in a way where we can't read your data, even if we wanted to on our servers, right? We've got a Mastodon server where we're very serious about making sure that AI bots aren't, taking over. So if you want to join what we call PrivacySafe Social, you can go out and do that. We've got a search engine, which is based on Search, SEARX, NG, which some of you folks might be aware of, which is like a decentralized search engine. And we've got something called Stick Talk, which is our attempt to basically prove that you can load TikToks privately and securely on a third-party server that's outside of both China and the United States, which it is. It's in Iceland. So we're trying to prove things by doing, and we want other folks who are builders, who are implementers, who are innovators to join us in that, or just to pick our brains. So I guess I really appreciate you guys joining. If you want to check out the products that we're selling, which also includes, by the way, we can do custom Android phones for you as well that are really locked down. That's something we'll be announcing in a little bit too. That's at ivcyber, ivycyber.com. You can check it out. As I said, we're going to have Cake Wallet on the tablet by default. We'll probably also be putting them on these phones we're shipping out by default. And if you want to check out the apps and the software and go check out the source code for yourself and the protocols, which are at IEEE, that's at PrivacySafe, so PrivacySafe.app, APP. Or just reach out to one of us. We're pretty active. We're out there and we're on all of the things. So not just the Twitters, we're on the Mastodons, et cetera. So.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Thanks, Sheree. And thank you all for tuning in. And we'll also be doing a space tomorrow with D-Euro as well, if any of you guys are here and you want to check that out too. So check out Sean's stuff, and then we'll see you tomorrow. And thank you all for tuning in.
Amazing. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.